for coming in. It's going to be another good show today. So, got a question for you. You ever had a bad day? Ever had a bad week? A month? A year? Never really sure why, but you feel like a pinball banging from side to side. Flippers knocking you around with no control of when and why. You just start waking up in the morning saying, "What's in store for me today?" This is how it's starting, but I have no idea how it's going to end. That feeling being out of control is like a marionette on a puppet master's strings, creating this uneasiness that permeates through the entire day. A feeling that at any moment, the other shoe is going to drop. And in so many of these cases, you've fallen victims to the traps and the triggers that are literally set by others. Not necessarily on purpose, but nevertheless, they've been set by someone and sprung by you, throwing your life into a downward, downward, downward spiral. So today we want to offer you some insights and hacks that put you into the ideal place for creating turning points that will allow you to not only survive these traps, but to recognize and avoid them as well. Hey, Gary.
Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Hacking the Infinity Matrix, episode number 35. Traps, triggers, excuse me, and turning points that can impact your happiness. All right, let's take a look here. We got some people coming in. I saw Demetrius on there in a second.
There's our man. Raina.
All right.
Hi, Monica.
I'm gonna
Jolene.
Hey, thanks for sharing it, Demetrius. Really appreciate that, buddy. And hey, Raina. Good to see you. Awesome. As you're coming in, go ahead and tell us where you're listening in from. Again, it's always nice to see our global community and our global reach. So go ahead, just let us know where you are right now in the world. And let's have a little fun. Let's throw in there, what's the temperature? So we can kind of get an idea of the temperature of the world as we see it in this moment. And if this is your first time on the stream, excuse me, again, I got something in my throat. If this first time on the stream, just go ahead and type in hashtag first time in the comments so that we know and we know who you are and we can kind of properly greet you, welcome you with open arms. And before we get into the content today, just let me tell you, we have moved the Down the Rabbit Hole segment to Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time here in the US and Canada. And the last one we did was just amazing. We had
it really was
such a great conversation. If you don't know, Down the Rabbit Hole is where we invite you to join us on a live stream, a live Zoom interaction where we discuss all kinds of thought-provoking topics, concepts, philosophies. In fact, last week we talked about everything from, I think it started off with, it was one of the beginning conversations, everything from babies being born out of test tubes,
yep,
right, to making a list of everything that exists. And so it was pretty wide as far as the conversation goes. And we'd like to invite you out to, again, Saturdays. We've changed the time frame. So if you want to join us on that live Zoom, come and have a conversation with us, have an open discussion. And it's basically where it's an open conversation that starts off on one topic, goes down the rabbit holes, and ends up talking about just about anything related.
I was reading another article this week. I was thinking about maybe this week we step into the holographic universe.
Oh, nice.
That's your favorite.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I mean, we can start off there, and we'll see where things go.
See where it goes.
Just that topic in and of itself can touch on so many different things. So it's also a great time to come and a place to have where you can present questions to Ross and I about any of the previous streams we've done.
Yeah.
And any questions you have about things that are going on for you in the Infinity Matrix, and really just kind of a place to be with other like-minded people for, stimulating, thought-provoking, insightful, fun conversation. So if that's what you want, if you'd like to have some of that with us, just join us on the call. The link is right there, hackingtheinfinitymatrix.com/rabbit hole. And that will get you to the Zoom registration page. Once you register there, then you will get the link to the actual stream that we do Saturday morning. So so 8 a.m. Saturday morning, Pacific Standard Time. Okay, now, what if, let's start with, what could we possibly mean by traps, triggers, and turning points that can affect your happiness? Let's start with traps, okay? Traps tend to be things you didn't or don't notice until it's too late. Not always, but they tend to be that way, right? Things that come along in life and sideline you just out of the blue. Okay, all of a sudden you're in this experience, this emotion, this behavior, this reality experience that you didn't expect, right? Kind of slipped in there. But there are also traps that you see coming a mile away, and yet for some bizarre reason, you're like a moth to a flame. You just keep heading to it. Ever wonder why that is, right? Or even better, ever wonder what you can do to avoid that, right? Well, the tricky thing is that they come in all kinds of forms and also bring different levels of impact on happiness in your life experience. All right. Part of the challenge is that as humans, we are creatures of habit. And we develop so many of our habits unconsciously, right? We watch others, we listen to others, we mimic others. From the moment we're capable of using our senses and figuring out how to use these awkward appendages that extend from our bodies called arms and legs. Okay? Think about it. Everything you do today, in some way, shape, or form, stemmed from what you heard from others, from what you saw others doing, right? And you adopted that. You either adopted or rejected it and did something different. So it's still influenced by that, right? You were perhaps guided or intentionally taught certain things. And then you mimic those things because at some level you believed it would bring you more or less happiness, depending on which emotion you were drawn to most. In fact, these habits have served us to function, to survive, and even to grow, right? So it's not that they're the traps that pull into these or the habits are always bad. We're not believers in that, right? There are also habits that have not served us. And those are the ones to be aware of, because if they're pulling you into an energy frequency or a vibration or a reality experience you don't want, then it's important to notice them and then to be able to do something to get out of those. But even more so, there are other experiences, traps that pull you into being your highest expression of yourself. And self for us is the acronym Spiritually Evolving Life Force, SELF. Right? So it's important to understand that in the Infinity Matrix, Ross and I anyways, we don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that traps are inherently or exclusively bad. Okay, let me pose it this way. Let's imagine that these reality traps are like energy vortexes. Okay, they pull you out of one thing and into another, right? And these invisible vortexes exist all around you. And as you find your way going through the matrix, living your life, throughout your life, you come to realize that there are traps that pull you back into childish behaviors, childish responses, right? Traps that bring you right into, there's also traps that bring you right into the present, here and now. And there's traps that pull you into more of the true expression of your future self, right? And it's different for everyone, right? But if you've ever had a family member, friend, a colleague, or a significant other who looked at you a certain way or said a certain thing in a certain tone, right? You all know who this is and know what that's like. Or they did something to rub you the wrong way, right? And you immediately, without conscious thought, you reacted, you responded in a way that you could, if you look deep enough, you could trace back to your childhood years. If you examine it deep enough, you'll find that the majority, not every one of them, but the majority of those responses, good, bad, or indifferent, were developed by the age of 7 years old. You think about it. That means the the adult population is functioning from a 7-year-old emotional framework, right? Right? And then you wonder why, things are the way they are sometimes. Okay. And so it was, so since it was people that triggered those responses, right, there's a high probability that it was the people who you were around at those stages who influenced those habits, those emotions, those reactions that you currently pull from today. And it's like there were unconscious energy portals that were created, again, some by you, some by others, that pulled you out of one realm of reality and into a completely different one. Sometimes better, sometimes not. Right? And there's the energy vortexes that bring you into the now. So those energy vortexes bring you to the past. There's energy vortexes that bring you into the very moment, the very now, right? Ross shared one with me this week that happened to him where he was so in the now, very present in the now, yeah, where it was a life-threatening situation, and that energy vortex that pulled him right into the now to respond and react for survival. Right. Yeah. And so you get this full sense of the total moment of being present right here, right now, and everything that's going on. Right. Those are good traps because it gives you awareness of what's the as close to reality as you can experience. Right. Because, we've talked in previous streams, we've talked on the rabbit hole, we talked in the masterclass, we talked in the 7-day program. We talk about the reality you see is not the reality that is real. Right. And these energy vortexes are no different. And then you have energy vortexes that pull you into the future. So, a very common one is if, when your first time you see your child after a child is born, it pulls you into for most people, it pulls you into a sense of being greater than what you were before you saw that child. That's an energy vortex that pulls you into more of your greatness, right? The first time you lock eyes with that significant other and there's something spark there, it pulls you. Right? So to be aware of these energy triggers that are bringing you into the past, pulling you into the present, or projecting you into the future. Now, it depends on the past, present, and future. That depends on the definitions you give for those experiences, whether they're going to be good, bad, or indifferent. Right? So the point here is to understand that most people do not choose their behaviors, reactions, or emotions from a consciously aware state of being. And once you understand this, and once you remember this specific thing, that's not a conscious action that they're doing, it's the 7-year-old, right? Think of it as the 7-year-old reacting and responding that way. When you interact with others, especially those you care for, with that understanding and remembering that, you can then have more compassion, right? You can show more forgiveness. You can show more understanding, right? You can even have an internal mantra that plays, and this is something I learned in my neurolinguistic programming training back in 1994, 95, around there. The time stretches and you kind of lose awareness. I think it was 95. And when I got it in the training, I was like, oh, what a great mind frame to have to function with people in communication. And it's an internal mantra that says people are doing the best they can with the resources they have in this moment in time. No matter what their behaviors are, no matter what they say, no matter what's showing up, you have to understand that they're doing the best they can with the resources they have in this moment and time. That includes you. So you can be compassionate with yourself. You can be forgiving to yourself. You can have more understanding of why you're doing certain things to get the type of results that you get. Right? And so having this internal mantra is kind of like a mini hack. It's a simple mini hack. If you can remember, people are doing the best they can with the resources they have in this moment. Because if they had more resources, guess what? They'd be doing something different. Right? And so in that moment, that's what they have. And we can't ask them to be more than or less than that. We can only ask them to be who they are in the moment. Same with ourselves, right? So this will prevent you from being sucked into energy vortexes that don't serve you and leave you more in a place of choice, right? To have that mind frame, you come from more of a place of choice, so you can feel way less triggered by words or actions from those in your reality and from yourself.
Exactly. It's great. And sometimes going off of that, Gary, is that, when you hear the term of being aware and such, it's being aware of yourself, but it's also being aware of your environment and the people in that environment, and being aware of what Gary just said, that mantra is that, they're working with what they got. And, the difference between you and them is that you're getting on live streams like this to increase your awareness so that you can better help them, which will in turn help yourself and cause even more expansion. And that's where it's so important. I don't believe that that I'm any better than anyone else because I'm more aware. I just am more aware, but I just am. I'm just like, okay, well, now I can use the tools that I've learned and the awareness that I have to help others and help them along the way. I was working with someone yesterday, and he was just having problems and just, F this and F this and and I could just feel this tension. I'm like, dude, I said, you're sure using that word a lot, and that's not like you. And he's just like, I don't know why. I'm just and I'm just like, well, I says, what can I do to help? I kept my voice nice and calm. I said, what can I do to take some of this pressure, this strain off of you? And he just went, and he didn't have to say it. He was just like, wow, somebody's finally says, can I help you? And he's like, I don't really need any help. I said, so you just needed me to be a sounding board for you? He goes, yeah. He goes, that because I feel so much better. He goes, thank you for bringing me back. And I'm like, cool, we're done. My work is done. And this wasn't a client. This was just a friend of mine. And that's what it is I was aware of him. He was not aware of himself, because something previously, before I was talking with him, had triggered him. And that's what we're going to talk about next. And what are triggers?
Oh, on here, Ross, I'm getting
Yeah, so I'm going to have a little bit of fun. This is not a trigger. The horse is named Trigger. I'm dating myself. So
for those of you that don't know, and those of you not from the United States,
this is the Lone Ranger and his horse Trigger.
The horse's name is Trigger from a TV show that's like ancient. It's like old. Like
you just had to put it in there, didn't
you? I'm surprised they had color in that thing.
I colorized it. Okay, so this is definitely not the type of trigger that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a trigger. Okay. And a trigger is defined in many, many ways. It's anything as an act or an event that serves as a stimulus and initiates or precipitates a reaction or series of reactions, which means it's definitely this. Because like Gary said, the world is full of traps and triggers. We're here to make you aware of them so that they are no longer controlling you. So, when you're driving down the road and you're listening to the radio and you're in a great mood, and all of a sudden you're kind of thinking about your senior prom or some event like that, something from the past. Could be a good shift, could possibly be a sad one, but nevertheless, your mind is reliving the entire experience, from getting dressed to getting all primped up and proper, to all the embarrassing photo ops from your parents, to that emotional moment on the dance floor. You know the one where you're looking in each other's eyes and a song is playing and you're just like, what? Well, wait a minute. That's the same song as you're listening to on the radio right now, but that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That song is a trigger. It's linked to a moment in the past that stimulates the mind to remember an emotion and the event connected to the emotion, causing a cascade of memories and sensations. I think I spoke about this last week. It was either in the live stream or the Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm not sure which one it was. And it was kind of apropos that we're doing this now, because this very example happened to me. I'm driving and all of a sudden I didn't have the best of emotional responses. And I'm like, wait, what the heck just happened? Because being in the work that we do, when we have these instances and these triggers and traps and such, once we realize them, we get rid of them. Well, sometimes one is just deep. And I'm just like, holy cow, what the heck just happened? Why did that just come up with an emotion? It's a memory, yes, but I'm not sure I really wanted that emotion to be there anymore. So I go home and work it all out. But nevertheless, though, triggers are so powerful. And they're being used on you every day, and you don't even know it. So think about this.
And by you, right?
Yes. So think about this. You want to know what demographic a car commercial is targeting? Listen to the song they're playing in the background, and then look up the year of the song, the year that that song was most popular. Okay, that's the demographic that they're after. So a trigger, to trigger the right emotion while connecting to an image or a little video of some sort, and voila, you have a car sale. Music is such a powerful trigger. So are scents and smells.
Yeah.
Mrs. Fields figured this out and began the idea of blowing the smell of freshly baked cookies into the mall. Cinnabons does the same thing. This isn't just happenstance. This is on purpose, okay? Very few negative emotions are attached to smelling grandma's cookies. I read where they spent tens of thousands of dollars on a special ventilation system to better direct the smell throughout a large hotel complex. So they were here, most of the people were here, and then they had this vent system literally doing like this. And people would just like follow the scent. It was amazing. So, and mind you, they only bake a few sheets of cookies a day. And they only do that just to create the smell. So, you know, over the hill and through the woods to grandma's house we go. Voila, cookie sales.
Yeah.
You know, a realtor friend of mine, he made a point to have spaghetti sauce simmering on this stove during his open houses, all to trigger the right memory and the right emotion. House sale.
Yeah.
So these are just a few examples of, you know, of the power of triggers. Psychological triggers can be virtually anything. Sounds, scents, words and phrases, facial expressions like Gary was talking about, verbal tones, tactile sensations, geographic locations. You can take this further and further into colors and shapes and numbers. The world can be a trigger. So what's the big deal with triggers then? Why do I need to know this, you're asking? So this analogy is going to be best. Imagine you're on a sailboat. It's a larger sailboat because you're on the ocean and you're the captain. You have the wheel. And you're also in charge of directing your crew and adjusting the sails. Okay? So we will assume that you have a destination, Catalina Island. And you've already plotted your course. So everything's set. So you're done. All right? I ain't got nothing else to do. The boat is going in the right direction, heading toward your destination, and there's just nothing left to do, right? Well, if that's the case, then why do you need a steering wheel? And why do you need to adjust the sails? Because there's waves, and waves can knock you off course. And in this case, and in this analogy, I'm not talking about tsunamis. Usually you can see a tsunami coming. I'm talking about the tiny, small, itty-bitty waves. They're the ones that are bumping the boat, that coerce your boat, bit by bit, nudge by nudge, into another direction, a different course. Triggers can work this way too. They're the waves. They're just nudging you and pushing you, coercing you to go in a different direction. And if you aren't paying attention and you're not aware, you won't even know it until one day you look up and say, this ain't Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did I get here?
Or worse, oh my God, there's a tsunami.
Yeah, exactly. Which in Gary's definition would be considered a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you just boom, 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 right into it. So like the waves, things, events, and people can trigger you in so many ways. It may not completely knock you off course, but it can certainly impede your progress, distract you, take you out of the moment, and possibly preventing you from identifying synchronicities that you actually needed to get to your destination. So if it's a major sentinel, they could very well take you out. And don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Many people around you now, from your past and your future, they know your triggers far better than you do. They know just what button to push, what exactly to say, and just when to say it. So here's our intention today. If they do appear to you, and they will, you can now bring this awareness to the situation, asking yourself, does this blank serve me and my purpose? If it doesn't, shrug it off, say thanks, but no thanks, and move on. But if it does serve you, savor it and grow, which further makes you more of an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. And that's when you know you've come to the turning points that we call the forks of infinity.
Yeah, and the forks of infinity is what we call this hack we're doing today, right? So I think it's important to understand that the triggers they're not something you can get away from.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
They just exist. It's a part of as these human beings that are influenced by the polarities of positive, negative, and even to some degree the neutral components. These triggers pull us through life experiences, right? And again, based on our definitions, we can determine which direction in a life experience we get, right? It does come from, first of all, being aware of what's going on, knowing that you have choice, and then stepping into those tools, skills, and resources that you develop as you go through life to access more of those choices, to act on more of those choices, right? And it's actually quite simple. It's, if you think about, Ross's example of the radio, the TV with the commercials, it's simple. You think of something that's going to trigger an emotion, you figure out what that emotion is, and then you take that emotion and you direct it towards a specific action. That's it. And then you do it over and over with repetition, like we talk about in the masterclass. We talk about, the importance is doing things in repetition so that they become automatic and instant, so they become hardwired and natural for you to do. But what if you could take the triggers and the traps and turn them to your benefit? So that they're going to be there anyways. I mean, the sounds, the people, the things that you see in your environment, they're going to be there anyways. The infinity matrix is all about taking that and turning that into your own personal storyline of life, right? Your own personal, Mark Victor Hansen calls it a living vision board. Right? When we told him about the infinity process, he's, that's totally like you're teaching people how to create this living vision board. Yeah, and that's really what it is, where it's this living vision board that's three-dimensional, that it's not something on pen and paper, it's something that exists around you, right? And that's understanding that these triggers are there. Now, how can you turn those triggers to move you in the direction of your greatness, as opposed to bouncing around where either others are wanting you to go, or where you just randomly end up somewhere in life, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's actually quite simple, but not always easy. And that's the important part, okay? It's quite simple, not always easy. Right? And it's not always easy until you practice the easy one enough times to establish it as a habit. Okay, so here's the hack. So step number one, the first thing is to become aware of the energy vortexes around you. So that's the first step. So here's what you would do for the next 2 or 3 days, right? For the next 2 or 3 days, I want you to make a conscious decision when you wake up in the morning that you are going to tune into and notice how your energy and emotions shift throughout the day.
Yep.
Just become aware of those emotional shifts, whether they're large or whether they're minor, whether they're drastic or whether they're subtle. Just be aware and what they are, whether they're subtly going towards more joy and happiness, or whether they're subtly, declining down into stress, anxiety, worry, those kinds of things. Just be aware of it first. Don't try to judge it. Again, you're doing the best you can with the resources you have. Remember that. Honor that. Okay? So be gentle with yourself. The first step is to become aware of it. Okay? And so take 2 or 3 days to do that. Then step 2 is you're going to isolate the happiness energy shifts and vortexes. And happiness means anything on the side of joy, celebration, anything on that side. So not just specifically the emotion of happiness, but anything that you would consider a quote unquote positive emotion. Okay. And so that's step number 2, is isolate which ones those are. So in a journal for the, again, within those first 2-3 days, in a journal, make notes on the details in your reality that occur or are present when you become aware of the happiness vibration and the non-happy ones. So you can start to distinguish, right? Because once you start to notice what these patterns are, you can start to not only recreate those patterns, but also become aware of when they show up. So remember I said it's like a moth to a flame, right? Well, again, it doesn't mean, want to kind of get out of the idea that this means that it's negative. That flame could be enlightenment. It doesn't have to mean you burn and die, right? As a metaphor, right? You know, so if you're heading that direction and you can start to notice the patterns to the direction you prefer, then you're more likely to follow along that when those patterns start to show up. Right? But if you don't put yourself in a state of awareness of stepping back out of the conditioned pattern automatic responses, then you're going to only continue to do that. All right. So that's so step 1 is become aware of the energy vortexes around you. So 2-3 days, just make conscious awareness of being in tune with what's going on with your emotions, your energy. Second thing, isolate the happiness energy so you know what that looks like, feels like, sounds like, tastes like, smells like. Put it in a journal so you have some documentation of it you can come back to until moving in that direction becomes more automatic. Right?
Exactly. So what you're going to understand, what you hopefully are getting from what we've been explaining is that, you know, your triggers are a combination of all of your sensory inputs. All of them. Okay, there's a reason for this. If you go back into just go back into the time when we were living out of caves. I mean, our sensories are all designed to protect us, and now as we've advanced and our brain is advanced, our thinking is advanced, and such like that, they become more detailed and more subtle at the same time, because there's, and then in this modern day and age, there's so much input coming in and such. So what we want you to do in step 3 is reconnect with yourself, your spiritually evolving life force. Reconnect with it. So on day 4 to 6, recall and review all of the happiness traps and triggers. Then bring your mind and your body and emotions to a still place, eyes closed.
And that's why in the first 3 days you're journaling, so that in the next 4 to 6 days you can come back and have something to reflect on.
Exactly. You're not going, what was it again? What was it again? Because you're going to be in the middle of trying to relax and find this still place. And you're going, what was it again? What was it again? Okay, still. What was it again? Still. What happened on Monday? So now you just have it. You're going to review all of that information. You go, okay, I've got it. Okay, so you're in a still place. Your eyes are closed. You're nice deep breathing and slow, deep breathing. Okay, your body is feeling calm and centered in the truth of who you are. And from there, reconnect with your deepest expression of happiness and joy. As if to turn on that frequency within your cells, your atoms, your molecules of your body. We did a live stream on joy. You should step back and go back and watch that.
And I think we did a guided visualization too on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So very, very important. I think that was actually one of our biggest as far as the audience and the replays that we had on it, because it's something that people are really looking for, and they just can't seem to connect with it anymore. So we're showing you ways of doing this. You know, all of our live streams, there's a progression to them, and everything is done for a reason and put in a particular order. And so one can be adapted to another. So then from step 4, you're making choice at turning points. So on day 4 to 6, whenever you notice any less than happiness emotions are being triggered, stop, pause, get into that still now state. Now, this doesn't mean in the middle of the store you have to sit on the floor and meditate.
Or it does. It's whatever works for you. We don't want to put any limitations on how you access this stuff.
Yeah, but that's
as long as you're safe and others are safe.
That's also why I don't go shopping with you anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but seriously, pause and get into that state and decide what degree or level of happiness you'd like instead, and direct your attention towards any traps and triggers that are likely to have you experience that in your reality. Okay, so you notice that something is not serving you. So so something has been triggered. And you can do this whether it's good or bad. So understand this, because when you have that moment where you're like, oh gosh, all of a sudden I just feel kind of good. You know, pause. What did it? Because I want to find more of it. Or something, as I was explaining to you earlier, is that, I'm driving and all of a sudden I started feeling sad. Why am I feeling sad? What just triggered me? Okay, so I had to think back, 5, 10, 15 seconds. That's all I had to do. I didn't have to stop to do this. I'm just like, what's going on? So when you notice any less than happiness emotions are being triggered, this is the most important time. Stop and get into that now state and decide what degree or level of happiness you'd like instead, and direct your attentions towards traps or triggers that are likely to have you experience that in your reality.
So step 3, you reconnect with yourself. And step 4, you make choice at turning points to the direction you prefer, right? You're making choices to what you prefer as opposed to what you've experienced in the past, or the conditioned responses that you've had. Step number 1, become aware. Step number 2, you isolate the energy shifts. Step number 3, you reconnect with yourself, spiritually evolving life force, SELF. And then number 4, you make the choice from there, because you're coming from what we call your choice convergence point.
Exactly. And then now, the more you do this, the easier it gets. The faster you can make this shift, and the more variety of degrees of happiness you'll have in your life. So when we're talking about variety of degrees, you don't have to be ecstatic and in the grocery store on the floor laughing your head off and such. You can have just that sense of joy. You can be overly happy, not too happy. I don't mean overly happy. I don't mean by you're being too happy. You can't be too happy and such. But there's degrees, okay? And just you have that sense of choice. This is what we're giving you again. This is how you get yourself to a place of choice. And then on the 7th day, come back to our stream or pop into the private group and share with us. Let us know what's going on. What did you notice? Or what didn't you notice? Remember that this is all about hacking and experimenting, and to see if what Gary and Ross share has any validity. In fact, we dare you to go out and practice this or any of our hacks that we've shared, and and come and tell us the honest truth about what happened. You know, when we did the last 7-day quest, I mean, it was crazy, the people that were commenting on their private group about what was going on. It was unbelievable. And
not to mention the personal messages we got.
What's that?
Not to mention the personal messages we got, for sure.
Exactly. So see, this is, how do I put this? So this is also a common trap that we're noticing, since people have been spending so much time online in front of a screen, working and learning and being entertained in some way. There is a trap of saying, oh, I'll get back to this and do it later. It's called watch later. There's actually a button. Click it and it says, do you like to watch this later? Yes, just put it on my watch later list.
I wonder how many people have actually gone back. Go look at your watch later list and see how many of those things you've actually watched.
Okay, so I'm gonna admit I use that a lot because I don't have, I'm just like, oh, I just really like, this sounds really interesting, but I do go back to my watch later list.
Yeah.
However, my watch, I don't watch them as fast as I add them into it.
Yeah.
So it's ever aggressively, ever more exponentially growing, and it's like watching mold. It's just like I can't stop, and it just keeps growing and growing. So, but it's now I'm not really much into watching cat videos and all that kind of stuff. So. The ones that I'm going to click to watch later are like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours long. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But it's a good point, though. It's a very, very good point. And so do this. I mean, if you take some time, and if you're going to do something and watch later or whatever the case, take some time. Say, am I really going to take that choice? Oh, I'll just get to it. Nah, that just doesn't work. Okay, because if you don't take the action now, it can't happen in the future, because the future is always the future.
To remember that, because we talk about this in other streams, the future is always the future. Right?
Tomorrow never comes.
It never materializes, and it's completely unattainable. So stop beating yourself up because you're not where you want to be yet.
And at the same time, you're also increasing your stress levels because you keep piling on. And then it just gets to that point where it's just you always have that feel of overwhelm. Yeah. Always, it's just like, oh, I've got so much to do because I have to get this done, but then I kept putting this and this and this and this and this. I'll get to that. And back here, it's that list is building.
Yeah. Actually, Jolene just wrote in not enough time. Actually, I think that's a great topic to even talk about tomorrow on Saturday for the live stream for the rabbit hole, because I have my thoughts on that. And so if you jump on and remind us, Jolene, on the rabbit hole on Saturday morning, I think that'd be a good conversation to go through.
Really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember, all we have is now, right? So set your mind on doing this hack and see what happens. And the reason we're emphasizing this today is because we're noticing that more and more people, because we're episode 36 now, 35. We're noticing that when we first started doing these hacks, we had all kinds of people telling us we're doing this, but it's died down. Part of it is, I think, the world's changing, and nobody's locked. Not as many people are locked in their homes as they were, and the weather and season and all that kind of stuff. But what we're noticing is that we're giving these great hacks, and people just aren't doing them. They're not hacking, or they're at least not reporting and let us know how these hacks are impacting their lives. We're telling you, this stuff is hacking reality. We're not joking here. Do the stuff we tell you and see what happens. Find out for yourself if what we're saying is a bunch of BS. Come and challenge us on it. We welcome it. Right? Welcome it on the rabbit hole. That's the opportunity. Bring it there. Let's talk about them. And or even in the chat, so that this becomes not just something you learn and, oh, it's interesting, that's cool, let's give it a thumbs up. And we want those things too so that we spread our message with the algorithm. But more importantly, we want you to take this stuff and apply it.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, it's just Ross and I spending our time and spewing out some words and not creating an impact. And that's not what we're about.
I'm not going to go into the whole example, but what Gary was referring to, what happened to me earlier this week, I'm going to go into the details of that on probably on Saturday on the rabbit hole. But I will say this: my awareness saved my life. I'll leave it at that, and then I'll go into the details on the rabbit hole. But it was profound. Yeah. It was absolutely profound. And I was in my car, so I literally pulled over after I'm on Messenger to Gary. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. This is unbelievable, and such. So, that awareness in the things that we teach is because we've gone through them. We've experienced them. That's where a lot of these hacks came from. They came from knowledge. They came from experience. And if it wasn't our experience, it was somebody else's experience. And then we're building on top of that. And so it's like I said, it's not only life-changing, it's life-saving. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to make with this statement.
Yeah. I mean, that's physical life-saving, but it's emotionally can be life-saving, and energetic, right. Spiritually. We really tap into all those different realms, but you've got to practice stuff. Let us know, and we'll keep bringing more of them. And it's what we love to do. So that's our stream for today, everyone. Watch out for the traps, get clear on the triggers, and be the master of those turning points towards more happiness in your life. Right. If anything, the last 18 months has taught us is that we need to tap into more happiness in life and live from that place. Right. Please remember, join us on Down the Rabbit Hole. The link is somewhere on the screen there, wherever you're seeing it. It's hackingtheinfinitymatrix.com/rabbit hole. To register for the Zoom call, you'll get the Zoom link emailed to you, and you can jump on and join us Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's a lot of fun. You can bring questions, your insights, and just even bring up topics you'd like to discuss. There's no guidelines, there's no scripting, it's just a free for all. All right.
Exactly.
And lastly, if you're not already a part of the group, you can head on over to there. I'm going to drop it in the link. Where'd it go? Here in the chat as well. So that should show up in the chat. You can head on over to, and it's been running along the bottom, but facebook.com/groups, The Infinity Matrix, and answer the 3 questions, and you'll be automatically accepted as a member. Under the guides tab, in the group, you can find all the replays of this and the previous 34 streams we've done. They make for a great binge series to watch, right?
Actually, they do.
And I should also mention too, I don't have the link up. We do have a Facebook, a YouTube channel as well. We're streaming there right now, so some of you may be watching us from there. And we're going to start to grow that content and have different things there as well. So keep an eye out for. We'll have to get that link and start to add that in here as well. I didn't think to add that into the software. So so thanks everyone for showing up and sticking around as long as you did. We'll see you on the next stream. Be well, everyone.
Thank you. So bye-bye. Take care.